Yeah. Check 1, 2. Hey. My microphone's all messed up here. Good morning. It's Monday, August 14th. Man, the year is just flying by. It seems like just yesterday it was January. Seemed like just yesterday we were griping about how cold it is. So it's a rainy. It's been raining for the last couple of days. Let me get rid of that. Good morning. I hope all is well with you. And if not, I hope that you have the strength to get through what you're getting through. So I know a lot of people are having it rough right now because of personal circumstances. So my thoughts are with you. And anyways, let's do a couple of adjustments here. And let's put that up there. And then let's do this. And we'll do 5 minutes today. All right. Pretty interesting week last week. This week, workload isn't as strong. So, and I saw that Saturday Jeffrey Like was live, and Truckers Education Network, and a couple of people are asking where I was last week. I did do a live feed Friday, but it was an interesting week for sure. Rig Runner has successfully completed their first broker load. So, and the people that helped me out with that, I appreciate you. You guys know who you are. So that was interesting, and I learned a lot about carriers. Stuff that I already kind of knew, but yeah. So I think that it was very interesting. It was a very interesting experience that I learned. I don't think I learned enough, but I learned at least something. So that's kind of how you have to look at life right now. So with that being said, we'll get to the comments here. Let some people come in. My numbers are hurting a little bit because I haven't been live consistently, and YouTube likes to go, you have not done what you've done. Meanwhile, the other channel is actually doing pretty good. We've got a few. Those of you asked about the tree that's on our house right now. We had somebody come by Friday to take a look, and they're going to take care of it as soon as it stops raining. So hopefully tomorrow or Wednesday. But it looks like it may not happen until the end of the week. So we're under a flash flood warning right now. So if you're in Missouri, keep an eye on the weather, because part of 44 likes to flood whenever we're getting this amount of rain. So if you're going through Missouri, I-44, especially around the Rolla area where it gets all kind of hilly, just be aware of some of the flooding that might be going on. Other than that, the dispatch was going well, but then I lost a couple of drivers. Not permanently, but a lot of one's got a truck down. The other one is doing a power only experiment, and the others are off for a while. So a lot of time off. These guys have been working hard, and they're getting it done. So that leaves my dispatch to be pretty light this week, which is probably a good thing, because there's some personal things here at home that I will probably have to address. So those of you who feel I've neglected them by not calling them as much the last couple of weeks, feel free to call me this week. And we'll try to have a conversation. But I'm gonna do a kind of a soapbox moment. But first, let's read some comments. And I wanna give you guys hope. I want to give you guys hope. Maybe we'll do that before we get to the comments. So think of a rock garden, but all the rocks are the same color. And bear with me a minute. Everybody's like, what the hell is Steve talking about? Talk about rock garden. Okay. Don't get your panties in a wad. Let me finish my comment. And in the sea of gray rocks, there's a red one and a blue one. Ooh, and a silver one. You can pretty much spot those rocks right off the bat. Why? Because they're a different color. They outshine the rest of the rocks. Now, if your goal is to just pick up any rock, you're going to pick up any rock. But if you're trying to find an odd rock, the ones that stand out, but in a sea of gray rocks, it's easy to stand out if you're just a different color or a different shape. If you are a business owner, if you're an owner operator who's negotiating on the spot market or negotiating with a direct customer, or you're just checking in at the shipper or receiver and you want to make a positive impression because you might want to have this person as a customer someday, you're very blessed. And here's why. Because it doesn't take much to outshine the rest of the rocks. Let me give you an example. When I posted this load on the spot market, the email and the communication that I got from drivers wanting to do the load or inquiring about the load was absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. I was getting emails with no body in the email. But and you can tell they copy and pasted, for the subject line, which I've done that. I'll copy and paste. Look, if I'm looking at a load on the load board and I have to email the broker, I'll copy and paste this, or actually type out the city and state, pickup date, and the reference number. And then I'll actually copy that and put, good morning, I'm looking at load, and then Control V, is this still available? And my signature has everything you need to know about our carrier. You know what's interesting about that is that no one that contacted me last week did that. Not even a hi, hello, what are the details? Just an email body with nothing in it except a screenshot of the load number. And so the couple of phone calls that I got, I couldn't understand a word. And when I did, they were rude. And I'm telling you, be the shiny rock in a sea of gray rocks. Because from a broker standpoint, it's not hard to outshine the others. As a driver, that should give you hope. Because if the majority of drivers are acting like this, and a lot of it is these dispatch services. Yes, I'm a part of a dispatch service, but you know what? 90% of what I dispatch is like trucking. We're not blowing up your phone to sell our services. In fact, I've had to turn people away. But that's what I do. I write whole entire sentences. I do this weird thing. I try to communicate. I know it's weird. And every now and then I'll get that broker that appreciates conversation, appreciates the fact that I'm asking these questions. And I can see why a lot of brokers are going to email only. Because if I'm trying to move a load as a broker and you don't even like have the decency to type a sentence, hey, what's this load doing? I don't care how desperate I am to move that load. I'm probably not going to respond to you. So it's very frustrating when I do all that and then a broker doesn't respond to me. But now I get it. Right? So it's easy to stand out in a sea of gray rocks. Now, will it equate to more money? Will it equate to an easier time in a rough spot market? Maybe, maybe not. But just have some integrity. Integrity, consistency. So, anyways, let's go to the comments. Get off my soapbox here. WCF Invader is happy. Yes. Better than a fresh cup of coffee in the morning. I've been really needing my daily Snorelord fix. I don't go daily. Gary Bates, Roar, Southbound Pack Durham, what's up? Don Schonger, hello. Guess you're dealing with a lot of rain, I think, as well. CB from West Tennessee. Greg Zimmer, good morning. By the way, I deliver any time before 3 today. They do shut down at noon on Fridays. Let's see how much attention I get for this nightmare. Well, hopefully you get something. Poor Don. If you watch his other channel, he had a rough go this weekend. He got to his place on Friday and nobody was there. So he had to sit on a load all weekend. Good morning from Michigan. Yes, Shannon. Looked like you were having a good weekend. Oh, and that device that your family was showing, I've seen those before. And yeah, Jeff's been talking about getting one of those for a while. So I looked on their website. I don't think they make anything for what I have. Gus Masaf. Good morning, all. I think rates are significantly better than 2 weeks ago. Yes, they've picked up a little bit. I appreciate everyone's kind words over the last 2 weeks. Buck Brown, yes, our thoughts and condolences are with you. Jose, good morning. Trucking with T-Bone. Good morning. Trying to throw me off there. As I'm changing planes in Atlanta right now, I'm on my way back to Little Rock. Well, safe travels, my friend. TCAM Express. Good morning to all. What's up? Jonathan Wheeler, good morning. DIY Semi. Taking time out of his busy day to come visit. Thank you. Josh Vegan, howdy, y'all. Has anyone had a turbo and a starter go out the same week, or is it just my luck? That, I don't know. It depends on the truck. A lot of truck issues. I got a friend right now whose truck's derating significantly, and it comes at probably there couldn't be a worse time that it's happening for him. So, and then I have another friend that's got a transmission issue that's also trying to get back home. So, Don is excited about DIY being in the house. Gary Bates says, I am Rooter. I knew sending new picks to brokers was a good idea to prove I'm a shiny rock. That Well, I mean, whatever floats your boat, man. Whatever works for you. So, I also got this new chair. I don't know if you guys can see this. It's like a gamer chair, and apparently my other chair was only rated for 250 pounds. I'm still above that. But the Shaquille O'Neal chairs, they were stupid expensive. I got this one half off. So, anyways, no, I'm not trying to throw you. Ran the night shift. Oh, okay. There you go. Well, glad you made it alive. I don't miss the days of having to, down all the monster drinks and have spicy foods to stay awake going to running all night. Not that I ever did that, but I don't miss that. Um, in reality, that's actually worse for you. So, but hopefully you weren't doing that. Looks like you made it alive, so that's good. Let's take a look at rates here. Let's take a look at load volumes. Let's see what the DAT is doing, and then we'll go to our 123 here. This won't be a long live feed because I've got some stuff I got to do. I got to talk to my kid and and have a conversation with Jeff. So let's take a look at some of these numbers. There's some really good numbers here, and some not so good numbers. All right, so let's see. Present screen. This is the DAT. And yes, I do promote the 123, but I also use the DAT. But this is the, if it'll show. Apparently StreamYard is having an issue. All righty. I guess we're not going to see the screen. Let's see. Let's try this again. There we go. What the hell? All right. So these are van national load counts, right? And this is where I check a lot of load ratios to see what states are you're going to have a better chance of getting a decent rate coming out of. And it also kind of gives me a good gauge of what's going on volume wise. Now, what's interesting is yes. So, well, okay, so that kind of didn't make sense. So, when I look for a load, I'm looking through my emails first. Then I look at the at my brokers that I have relationships with because they too don't want to field a bunch of phone calls of people not speaking full sentences. Okay? They don't want to deal with that either. So, speaking from a broker standpoint, I would much rather deal with carriers that I don't have to post on the spot. Right? So, there's that. And so and then I'll open the DAP board and the 123 at the same time and kind of compare, see what's going on, depending on what area we're in. If and then and now and then hopefully as a last resort, hopefully we don't get to that point, but then that's when I'm making the 20 phone calls and 20 emails to brokers that I may or may not know. So, but the DAT is one of multiple. Like I'm talking like 10 different sources of getting loads, right? So because a lot of the bigger brokerages aren't posting on some of these load boards now. Like Load Smart, they don't. I haven't done a Load Smart load in a while, but they don't post on DAT. They do post on 123, but they want you to go to their website. Same thing with I mean, all of them. A lot of them are doing that. So, anyways, if you look at the load ratios here, a lot of loads are being moved, but it's going to a lot of dead areas like North Carolina. Southeast is no good anymore. Let's see what the Midwest. Missouri, 492 in, 877 out. That's not bad. New Jersey has more coming out than in. Nevada is kind of woken up a little bit with 293 coming out. That's interesting. New York, more coming out than in. Ohio is doing good. Oklahoma, no. Pennsylvania, more coming out than in. And if you're a reefer, Pennsylvania could be a good spot because a lot of candy is coming out of the Pennsylvania area for Halloween. South Carolina, not too bad. Tennessee's doing pretty good. Texas, look at Texas. 3356 going in and only 1916 coming out. That's surprising. And you know what? They're not paying to go into Texas anymore either. So I would avoid Texas at all costs because of this. Because those other carriers that live there in Texas, they're scrambling for all this stuff. So it's definitely a dead zone. Virginia is doing pretty good. Freightwaves talked about that. Washington, not too bad, but still lopsided a little bit. And then Wisconsin, 690 in, 1090 out. This is for van. These aren't huge numbers, though. That's the thing. Let's see what Illinois is doing. 1520 in, 1979 out. Indiana, 900 in, 1604 out. Kentucky's doing pretty good. Louisiana, not so much. Well, no, actually, it's not too bad. So, we can let's look at Reefer here on the DAT, and then we'll go to the 123. Arkansas looks pretty good. California, Florida, definitely not. 1407 going in, 451 coming out. That's how they justify 90 cents a mile on freight coming out of there. You either take it or you don't. Idaho has woken up. Illinois is doing pretty good. Indiana's doing good. Kentucky, Michigan, Missouri, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Texas. Absolutely not. Is not. Wisconsin's doing all right. So there's the DAT board. Texas, the Badlands. Yes, Ponzi, it is. Many love TOTJB's empty chair. ESOP. I have no idea what that means. All right. Oh, I got to change this. All right. I didn't want you guys to see my login info. All right. Let's take a look at load availability here. Load have. I don't even get that DIY. Some people don't even type that. That's funny. I didn't even get that. I didn't even get that. All right. So this is for Van. I'm gonna leave your question marks up because that's funny. Missouri looks good. See here, Texas is green, but man, it might just be the brokers that are posting on here. But look at these rates. Sort by all rate, all in rate. This is interesting. I bet you it's like 20 stops. Metal pail tubs. They're at $5,000, $369 a mile. So there's something definitely going on here. Laredo to Winona, Minnesota. 20,000 pounds. I doubt that's paying 5,000 unless there's something. It's like Laredo is doing all right. 214, 209. Let's take a look at this one. Axle Logistics. 2 extra stops. $4,000. It just depends on where those stops are at. Let's see. You're looking at Load Smart, which I mentioned isn't on the DAT board. Let's see whether they got. Picks up at 7 o'clock on the 21st. So, general merchandise going to Washington. All right. So, let's sort this by rate per mile. See where all the short stuff is. Beaumont to Baton Rouge. Of course, that one Laredo load's going to pop up. Sherman, Texas to Oklahoma City. Yeah, it's $315 a mile, but it's only $539. Let's take a look at that one. A lot of stuff being pushed for the 21st. That's not until, well, next Monday. So when you start seeing a lot of that, sort this by age of the posting. See how many last minute things we got going on. Dallas to Lowell, Arkansas. Houston to Russellville. Smart International. I've never heard of them. They're at $975. Cargo Chiefs got about $1136. Plastic resin and Gaylord boxes on pallet. Pick up between 6 and 2. Let's talk them up a little bit, maybe to $2 a mile. See $1.87, $1.67, $1.69. So this is the Texas I know. And because of those load ratios that you see, your leverage is going to be, you're not going to have much leverage, but you might be able to outshine the other rocks, right? So let's get out of Texas here. Let's look at freight coming out of Missouri. Is there some stuff for today? Not much for today. Wow, look at that. 14, 14, 15. And then you can also post this by date. It'll go with the earliest date. So you can see just how many they're posting for now. Here, let's look at this Joplin to Northfield, Minnesota. And that's the other thing with those load ratio maps and lists is that, it kind of, you don't want to like go with a low rate going into an area that you're going to get a lower rate as far as, your leverage goes, right? So, but now here's the thing: we have Missouri Interstate here at Like Trucking, so I can click on this and see what all's moving around Missouri. Salem to West Plains, $800 for 87 miles. What's up with this one? I bet you there's a couple of stops on this. Oh no, it's a straight through delivery. So there you go. If I had a truck in the area, I would maybe call on this, see what's going on with it. There's got to be something to it that it's $800, literally double of what it normally is. But that might be the thing. St. Louis Neosho, another good run. Picks up at noon today. Probably delivers first thing in the morning. There's a Walmart with truck parking right there in Neosho. Fish meal. I think I've done that run before. Kansas City to Earth City, so that's basically Kansas City to St. Louis. I don't like that delivery time, but it picks up tomorrow. Well, it's a straight through delivery. So it's a load of beer, which if you have Missouri Interstate, you're good to go. You don't need a permit. If you don't, I don't know what it is. I did a video on how to find that out. So, but it's interesting that Kansas City is shipping beer to Earth City, which is usually beer comes out of St. Louis. Not very many loads on the interstate, but there's a few. And then if you're trying to get to Missouri, you can look at the inbound and see where everything's coming from. Tallahassee, Florida, Springfield, that kind of thing. So, all right. So, let's eliminate that. Let's go to let's look at reefer loads. G Star, good morning. Don says the short stuff is where it's at. DIY replying to that. Man, it's getting real bad. It's interesting to see that, Urban, because I want to know what's creating that perspective for you. Not saying you're right or wrong. I'm just interested in what you're seeing and what you're dealing with. Um, it's sometimes the mind can work against you. Daniel Ross says I got 230 yesterday out of Laredo, 1,300 miles, 8,000 pounds TQL. Wow, that's a good deal. That's a good score. Excellent, good deal. You hear stories like that. Laredo misses Pale Rider. That is true. That is true. Well, don't just eye it. Book it. Is there a 500-mile out and back lane starting in Indiana for 1K a day these days? No. In van or reefer, CB? We could take a look at that. That's the Bud Light returns. Probably. Someone had a video of the Budweiser booth there at Sturgis, and it was dead. Mrs. A, that's what I was just thinking. Beer to St. Louis is like cheese to Wisconsin, isn't it? Yeah. CDN, good morning, Steve. Replay for me. I didn't get home till 1 a.m. Back to business. Wishing everyone a profitable week. Thank you, CDN. For Van. All right. So let's take a look. Let's go to load search. Actually, hold on. Let's do this here. Let's go back to Van. Apply. Let's go ring up Indiana here. Let's take a look at intrastate. That would be a big no. Let's see. Let's do the highest rate here. 600, 600, 600, 500, 460, 300. Now, the problem with these is, I mean, if you get 3 a day, you're good to go, but these probably aren't designed for 3 a day. So that's a big no. That was the thing around here. It was fairly easy to get $1,000 a day around here. But a lot of the contract stuff, that stuff was, like Thomas is mentioning here. You can, but it's not on a low board, because people that were able to score that are keeping it. They're not sharing it. And all you got to do is have a better email and a better communication skills, and get those rates. Florida intrastate rates dropped horribly, $300 in some lanes, and they're playing chess on an outbound freight rates in Florida, which we already know. Yeah, I experienced that last week. I had to keep a driver in the area, and it was tough. I was bidding on a load. I bid 600 on a load, and here's something interesting. So I was talking with one of my normal brokers, which I don't do a whole lot of freight with him because the rates are usually pretty low. So that whole broker seek you out if you're always the cheapest truck, that ain't true either. It might be in some cases, but in my case, it's not. In fact, we've lost a little bit of leverage with them because we don't do as many loads, because their rates are always tend to be lower. But the guy is pretty aggressive. He texts me every morning, and every now and then they got something that works, especially if I'm looking for something specific. And I have made good money with this broker, so it's not like a one-sided thing. Anyways, I bid actually I bid 800. Then I was going to come down to 600 and stayed there, and meanwhile, he shows me a screenshot of how there's like literally 6 other carriers looking at this load that put a bid in, and they countered all of them, and they had it posted for 295, I think, 300. And they were all countered at 350. All 5 of us. And I even used the term, how are my trucks supposed to stay in business with this? Learning from that book that DIY and I read. And his reply was, "Look, man, I just go with what the computer tells me, and get yelled at by truck drivers all day." This was all text, I wasn't yelling at him. and and then all of a sudden, low was gone. And he told me, yeah, it went for 325. I'm like, so you guys countered everybody at 350 and someone took it for 325? That's how desperate someone was. And it's acts of desperation that create stress. It's acts of desperation that makes you run lower than your business can sustain. It's acts of desperation that keeps the truck moving where you have no balance in your life. You know, the higher your truck payment, the more desperate you're going to have to be when the market is tough, and it's tough right now. And hell, you might have a really cheap low truck payment, but then you got this 10, 15, $20,000 repair hanging over your head that you got to deal with. But yeah, the Florida interstate, you know, the trick is you go south for the big money and then you go north for the bad money, or you don't get paid to go up at all, and you rinse repeat. If you want to run that area, we got a truck that does that. He does pretty well. He's a hustler though, constantly moving, constantly booking. When Jeff has me covering Raycons, man, I'm half of the Raycons are his. He's 2 or 3 or 4 loads ahead at all times. We have a few Schneider guys here that ex Schneider guys here that are used to booking 2 or 3 or 4 loads ahead, and so they do it. They get it done. But yeah, he's it's now if it's straight through delivery, it's not as bad. But man, if it picks up at like 6 a.m. and delivers tomorrow at 8 p.m. and it's $300, who's doing that? Right? CB, I'm doing 1250 today running Indiana. You also have to have a fleet of trailers. That's true. I grossed $7,000 2 weeks ago. Interstate last week. I didn't work because of family emergencies, but I'm looking today and boom. Yeah, I mean, look, I showed earlier that Florida was like 1,400 going in and only 200 coming out of that many loads on the dashboard. So the Southeast is a complete crap show right now. Urban Network. Like there was a moment this earlier in spring where you were getting better money coming out of the Southeast than you were out of the Midwest. Now that's not the case. Virginia is not doing too bad, but still, because of how soft the other markets around, you're not really seeing much difference in the rates as far as depending on the load ratios. After using Uber and Lyft frequently this weekend, the trucking industry can learn a few things to enhance our industry. I know. I'd be curious to know. You ought to come on sometime when you're not busy and not tired to explain what you're talking about, because Uber has a freight brokerage and they have a lot of things that they need to learn. Their model isn't applying very well to the freight broker world. That's why I don't move freight in Florida. LTL flatbed. That's a good way to make some money. That's all year round down here, doesn't it? Every now and then during the produce season, you'll have some uptick in volumes coming out, but that's about it. My spidey senses at Snyder believes things are getting worse. Freight availability is getting tighter, while rates taking another step downward. Fuel price not helping. Dio, I've been hearing that from the Schneider guys as well. And yeah, it's look, Freightways have been talking about how contracts going to come down. So that's where Schneider is feeling the pinch. And when they got less loads on their board, they're going to try to take a bigger profit margin off of each load, so it balances everything out. That's what all brokerages, not all, but a lot of them do. Urban says I agree. This guy asked me how I was getting $1,000 a day in Florida. I got on the phone and he listened and saw how aggressively negotiated. When he was shocked, I booked him a load for $1,000 too. There you go. Brookhaven, Mississippi to Brooksville, Florida. You want me to look that up? Or is that what you're doing? These brokers that throw the insulting rates are going to be wondering why carriers won't haul for them when the rates rebound. What type of market it is? Tremendous amount of the freight that is available in Florida is handled by LTL carriers. That's true. Thomas used to work for an LTL carrier. SST, what's up? One thing you don't talk about, Steve, is just how much freight is moved on the train and an empty on train out of Florida. The rail has a big part of that too. That's why everybody was salivating when there was going to be a rail strike. But the reality is that never happened, did it? Because it was every corporation's best interest to keep that moving so they can keep some of the freight at a cheaper level. That's why sometimes a lot of times it's a struggle to get good freight, good paying freight to go in and out of California. Florida is kind of the same way. Very slow at Pumpkinville. Yeah, that's what I've heard. One good hurricane in Florida, like last year, and water loads make for a great month. Yes, that's true. And hurricane season is just around the corner. Schneider just picked up a huge Tesla contract out of Reno, so that's good. Yep. And the other thing about you Schneider guys, they're putting a lot of it. Think about this. They're putting a lot of it on outside carriers. We've got a truck over here doing some Schneider power only. It's doing all right with it. And yeah, just Landstar did a lot of that. I would struggle. It was kind of amazing to me. I would struggle to look for loads on the Landstar load board. Meanwhile, I'm watching outside carriers pull all these Landstar trailers. And you have a lot of look at Amazon. Look at their model. Amazon doesn't want you to own a trailer. They want you to rely on theirs. And if you master the system, you can do pretty good with that. If you don't know the system and you don't have good service, it's a crap show too. Thomas, we just talked about that this morning. CSX is killing us. First, brokers and shippers instructions from check-in, truck entrance to help drivers know exactly what to do. Yeah, that would be good. Retired trucker. I missed your live feed Friday. I apologize. Pigtail is way late. Second, we have all sort of tracking apps, but not shared or used as well as an Uber or Lyft app, even if only lasts 10 minutes away so shipper can see where driver's located. That's where Uber has issues. Uber's geofencing when it comes to some of their customers is off. And it will say that you've left when you haven't. And then a lot of times it will say you're late when you're not. Jeff has had to call Uber many times to get our score back in place because their app was screwing up. So their technology is not working well for the trucking world. So that's And and I've Amazon's got that technology too on their app. Like I had a delivery that was coming. I can literally see now if it's coming from the post office and Amazon. They don't do that, but you can literally see it's very Uber-esque on watching the truck come down the road to deliver your package. Um, I know that the Pepsi in Tulsa that I've done with Uber, it tells me I've arrived at the customer about 5 miles before I'm there. And then if I go to the back parking lot, it says that I left. So they need a lot of work in that. Um, in that, I agree with you. The tracking should be there, and then like Schneider, they'll actually give you their GPS will actually get you to the entrances of where you need to go, and I believe that's what he's talking about, Mr. Wilson. You take a paper mill. There's 5 entrances. You need to know which one. And so if the app or the tracking app can tell you that, that would be good, right? Pumpkin just started a new broker board this month for select ones. We'll see how it rolls. Third, in Las Vegas, every hotel had a designated area for taxis and limos. Could be trailer spotted versus rideshare have separate pickup areas, live load or spot load or contract carriers. Like I said, I would love to have your input on a video, and I know you're busy. Pull the Woods, man. My condolences to you as well. I saw your post there on Facebook. So, but I think that technology has made us a little bit lazy because, for example, the company I was with as a company driver, they had specific instructions on the entrances on almost all of our customers. And then as time went on and everybody got GPSs, they stopped doing that. I still make it a habit of calling the customer and if I can, if it's not obvious on Google Maps of where to go in. And I remember a delivery I made in Pennsylvania. It said, GPS said take a right here, and I couldn't get a hold of anybody to tell me where the entrance was, and it almost put me under a 12-7 bridge. Had I not been scanning my intersection before I made the right turn, that would have been a bad day because there's no way I was going to be able to back into this road. I would have had to call for assistance. So, but Uber definitely needs some work on their geofencing. Um, Convoy too. They try to utilize that same technology, but they're not. Steve can rate a shipper facility and staff on Uber rate. Do shippers rate drivers as soon as they leave? There is so on the Uber app, Convoy as well. You can rate the customer facility and like JB Hunt. So here's a little trick for you guys that use JB Hunt. So when you look at it, if you're not a premium carrier, you don't get the addresses or the name of the places. You just get the city. And on JB Hunt, you'll have ratings. Well, in that ratings, if you read the reviews, you can almost figure out who the customer is. A lot of them will say in the reviews who the customer is. So if you don't have that premium status, you can see who the customer is. And Uber's got that as well. Now, if it's a new customer for Uber, they're not going to have any ratings. They'll have no info at this time. But for the most part, if you see big money on something, but you see the ratings are like 2.5 or 3.2 stars, and then you read the reviews, you know that that's going to be a tough time, which is why there's money on that load. So, um, now the shippers rating the drivers. I think that some shippers don't even know that drivers exist. And so, yeah, I don't know how that would work. If you're a shipping clerk at, say, French's Mustard here in Springfield, if you're absolutely belligerent, yeah, they're going to kick you off the lot and then they'll blacklist the carrier, but the shipping clerk may not be able to communicate with the people that actually book the loads. Now, Uber and Convoy and JB Hunt, C.H. Robinson, all these people with apps, they have ratings for carriers. And so because of those ratings for carriers, that they can like cherry pick the loads that you're allowed to see or you're allowed to bid on. C.H. Robinson. So the C.H. Robinson will tell you you're either at key status or core status, and there's some loads that you can see on their board but you can't bid on at all because you're not at a status. And those ratings are based off of the use of the app and on-time delivery. Now, Schneider, on the Schneider IC side, on their side, they can rate the customers, but I think a lot of these customers that you give a bad rating, like if I put a bad rating for a customer on Uber, what that does is if Uber's got a bunch of 1-star reviews, they go back to the shipper and say, "Hey, this is a problem. How can we solve this?" Or we got to ask for more money to get this done because we have trouble getting drivers in here. In other words, they're using the algorithms to kind of find out what a phone call could find out. If you have open communication with the driver and, hey, what's the challenges of this customer? How's their check-in process? But instead they just want the reviews, and what they do with that information, who knows? They might use it for leverage for a higher rate, or they might just, who knows, right? So, I don't know if shippers can rate drivers, but what are they basing that rating on? How rude the driver was? Did the guy smash up the dock? Did the guy not listen to directions on the facility? There's too many moving parts to pinpoint that. If I go, like, if you check in the French's, here's what you do: wheels all the way to the back, right there at the gate, open the doors, and then you got to go park in the middle in a spot. If you just sit in the middle in the way of everybody, they get mad, right? And then you go in, you give them the pickup number, and then they tell you, go back in the door of this, and then you have to unhook from the trailer, chalk the wheels, and then bring us your key. And if they don't do that, they don't load you. Now, the shipping clerk at French's, he does not have direct contact with the people that are in charge of booking the loads. They're just kind of taking it as, this is what we're doing today. And so that shipping clerk's rating of that carrier that didn't listen to those instructions, he's got control by just saying you're not going to get loaded. And if the dude's rude, they kick him out. Then you've got some official line to kick out that carrier from ever picking up a load there. But that's a process that an app can't do in the logistics space. So that's kind of what goes on with that. So all you have to do is, if you have any common sense, look at Google Maps and zoom in to check it out. It's all part of planning your trip, looking, see what the road looks like. I did that on one, but it's hard to see bridge and bridge heights, so you got to use the street view. So on this particular trip in Pennsylvania that I almost made a mistake. And then again, a paper mill. How do you know which entrance to go in? So it's a good idea to call. A lot of them will have an automated phone line for just instructions only. So we'll just put a computer in a truck and let it drive itself. That's what they're trying to do. Uber Freight need to get out of the brokerage game. The only time I take a load is if I know the customers ahead of time and it's a premium rate. What I do like, here's the positives of Uber. I can see the customers. I can see the pickup delivery times. And I can see if it works for me without making a phone call. Right? Everything's laid out right there. And they do have some good rates at times. More not than usual here lately, but there was a time where there was a large percentage of my loads that were Uber for my own truck. And because they had a decent rate. Being at the right place at the right time is the name of the game with Uber. I once got $1,000 for 200 miles because I was 15 minutes from the customer and it needed to be picked up in 15 minutes. I got lucky on that one. Now, is that the norm? Absolutely not. Are their rates trash a lot of times? Yes. But that's where the bidding comes in. Most of the trash rates, there's bidding on there, and someone's going to underbid you. Why? Because they're desperate. Or maybe they need that load more than you do. Has anyone seen an improvement to facilitates that had bad ratings? Number 2, did your negative rating affect future loads? That's a good question. I have seen some improvements with some facilities, but that's over a large period of time. Usually, it depends on. Yeah, yes and no. CDN. I know that's very vague. As far as the negative rating, did it affect future loads? I don't know. It's hard to think that my one little review out of 100 drivers would make a difference. And a lot of times it could be one bad security guard. I used to pick up and deliver at Toys R Us. That's how long ago this was. At Toys R Us distribution center in Independence, Missouri. And there was a security guard there that had this power trip. I know five of our drivers have almost gotten a fist fight with this dude, myself included, because of how rude this dude is. Now that guy ended up finally getting fired, but it took about a year of this before he was. I mean, this dude was bad. I mean, it takes a lot to make me mad. This guy had me almost hit him. He was just, man. If I was an owner operator picking up a load, I would have called the broker and said, "This guy is an ass. I'm leaving." That's how bad that was. So I don't know if that makes a difference or not. Where I use the reviews is to kind of know what to expect. For example, had a driver delivering at a paper mill. He was trying to get delivered early. And all the reviews said, don't go in early, don't go in early. This is going to be a bad day. This is going to be a long day, blah, blah, blah. So, but there was one review that said, if you show up at this time and do this and bribe the security guard, you'll go right to a dock. Well, guess what? My driver saw that review and tried that, and it worked. He was in and out within an hour at like 5 o'clock when he had an 8 o'clock appointment. Now, I cashed apped him the money for that bribe. I didn't tell him the bribe. He saw that. He negotiated a price with the security guard, and he got empty. So the reviews can be a way to know what to expect. Hey, a lot of reviews will tell you which entrance to go in. A lot of reviews will tell you the process, so you don't have to fumble around when you get there. It's a service. And sometimes reviews of a place are all bad and there's none good because nobody puts good reviews in anymore. Everybody just wants to talk about the bad. So you might have a place that's got a 3-star rating with nothing but 1 and 2 and 3-star reviews with a couple of 5s in there for counterbalance. And you go in there and it's just like a normal day. Right? So there's the reviews are there, the tools are there. And a lot of times I use reviews as more of a gauge and a process. Like one might say, "Hey, don't go past this street because you'll get stuck," or "You need to go in this entrance instead of this entrance, or else the security guard is going to yell at you." "Oh, you can't have dogs in this facility." I had to turn around and do this, that kind of thing. And that's where the reviews come in. And whether the broker or the shipper reacts to those reviews, that is hard to say. I know the broker might leverage more money from that. Hey, 90% of drivers hate coming in here, so, you know. So, anyways. CDN says I will come on one morning in the next week or so. Awesome. Shippers usually don't care what truckers think about them. That's true. I always kept the dummy key to hand off when they request it. Nobody's getting the keys to my truck. Absolutely, SSD. I too have the same trick. But you know what's interesting is you see the drivers in there that freak out. And like, you can either keep your key, but you have to hang out in the lounge, or you have to give them the key. Well, it's amazing how many drivers, how I pick up this shipper all the time, and it's amazing how many drivers I see that don't have spare keys. And the shipping clerk who knows me, he's even said to people, "Do you have a house key? I just need a key." And it's amazing how many drivers, "I don't have extra." Like, so what do you do if you're idling your truck and you got to leave it? Do you leave your truck unlocked with the key in it? So it's kind of crazy to think, but yeah, that's a good trick. It's one of those little tricks that a veteran showed me. He goes, "Always have a spare key in your pocket. Always, 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 always. You will never lock yourself out of your truck." Been driving 14 years. You know how many times I've locked my keys in the truck? 0. Mr. Charles, hope you're doing all right. I know you're having a tough time right now with that truck. Hopefully you'll get it resolved. Coca-Cola took my keys to load, then lost the key, then claimed the service failure because I didn't leave the dock after unloading. Very classy operation. Yeah. It's the broker's job to provide accurate pickup and delivery instructions, including exact entrance number, check and process, etc. But a lot of them don't. A lot of them don't even know their customer, CDN. And Uber is of no exception. TQL just called me Jacksonville, Mariana. Jackson to Mariana, 250 miles, $400. Shopping carts. But Mariana is a dead market. Unbelievable. That means that TQL is probably getting about $600 for that shopping carts. I think, if I know the customer. Now, Don says Uber will list the load delivering to a Walmart DC with no appointment set. Then it's up to the carrier driver to smooth talk the receiving office to get unloaded. If I get a Raycon from any broker, whether Uber or anybody else, and there's no delivery number, that's a problem. I resolve that before I even pick the load up. Now, also, if there's no delivery appointment time set yet, I will not book that load. JB Hunt does that all the time. I will not do those loads because I can't tell you how many times I've had a load that that sorry, I got distracted with something. That you book it. Oh, they set the appointment for Tuesday at 8 p.m. and it's a 300-mile load. Like, no, that ain't going to happen. And if you cancel the load, you don't get your toner because you're the one who canceled the load. Now your score sucks. So I do not, if it says appointment needed, I do not book it. If it says it's an open window and it shows it's a Walmart delivery, I will not book it because obviously there's a miscommunication there. Doing some research, and you mentioned that you do not like to do melons, berries, onions, etc. in South Georgia, Florida. Bad experience on your end, or just a lot of liability. Um, when it comes to reefer freight, I don't have a whole lot of experience with berries and onions, but as far as the melons, yeah, there's I have not personally experienced that because I don't have vents on my trailer if you're a van. But I do know a lot of stories that when stores are full with watermelons, they will reject load over the simplest thing because they don't have room for it. And so you got to be aware of that. And then now you're trying to get rid of a 53-foot van full of melons. And Walmart is notorious for that. There's a facility right outside the Walmart DC there in Mississippi, one of them in Mississippi, that literally the truck stop literally says, "Hey, if you have a rejected melon load, give us a call." It's so commonplace that they have a business based around that. Also, the temperatures you got to be careful of that. Vents may not be enough, and the broker doesn't know, the shipper doesn't know. So, and then also the wait times of a lot of melon loads. So yeah, there's it's a little bit of both. Bad experience from people I know, my father included. He had a lot of experiences that were negative with melon loads. So I just avoid the headache. You know, melons, pumpkins, Christmas trees. There's some money in them, but I don't know. And then also depending on where the melons are coming from. So if you're doing melons from an agricultural broker, guess what? You can't file on their bond if they don't pay you. A lot of factoring companies will not factor an agricultural brokerage. So you're running a lot of risk there on that end as well. Now, obviously, melons get moved, so I would talk to the people that are more experienced with melons and see what they tell you. They'll tell you the ins and outs and what the positives and negatives are. So last night our flight was late upon checking out of the South Park where our car was parked because it was 45 minutes past midnight. The exit gate wouldn't open until we paid extra fee. See part 2. Part 2, imagine if there was a process where a driver had an app that required shipper to pay if detention is owing. Flip side, shippers do the same if a driver is late, other than whether that is the cause. We'll definitely have to have a discussion on that. Um, see, I was like, how do I even have the nerve to ask me a target rate like that? And fuel's $4.30 a gallon. But see, there's someone that's going to take that urban network. Just waiting on the tow. Need to listen and take a break for more calls. Well, I told them 700 on those cars since it's a straight through. They said 400, 450 max, and this is why we are in abandoned ship mode. Oh no, I have a delivery number, but it won't be valid, or if it is, it's for a week after they say it's scheduled on the Raycon. That's exactly what happened the last Walmart DC delivery I had. Yeah, and you want to call ahead. You know, a lot of times if you don't trust the broker or if it's some if the delivery number doesn't look right, call the Walmart traffic office and see when the delivery time is. They'll tell you. And if it's not right, then you have to call the broker and get that remedy before you get that load delivered. To show trucking is about who you know, take company that owns Caesar's Palace and 5 other properties. I've never heard of any YouTube channel talk about deliver hotel properties. No different than Disney properties, right? Produce claims weren't as big deal back in the day. Today, it's a very big deal, right? So, anyways, I got to end this broadcast because I've got to talk to my son before he goes to work. So, but with that being said, thanks for watching. Hopefully we'll be live Wednesday. We'll see what's going on, and no outro song later.